They started with Luke, and they took all our heroes one by one.
Well, I do hear about this, right? Because I've talked about this in my channel at length. The desecration of heroes that we used to look up to, like the foundations of, like, I guess, our childish understanding of what a hero should be, or like a character that you should look up to. All throughout, like, all of us growing up, like, we're all at different sort of age ranges, I suppose, but we all looked up to characters like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and we've seen them get turned into either bitter old men or had their memories tarnished by saying, like, well, they were never that heroic in the first place. It was all a bit of mythos that was built around them. Yeah. Where do you see that going? Like, if we take this to its logical conclusion, what do you see happening here in terms of, like, the next generation of viewers or audience growing up with movies where there aren't any heroes anymore, and we have these weird, morally ambiguous characters like we get in The Acolyte, where nobody's really a hero or a villain. It's all just like shades of meh.
You want me to get into that?
To be punished for being
horrible. What I think if we don't have any more heroes to look up to, then we'll need someone to kind of listen to, and that could be, the government. That could be someone in some sort of a higher power that we're kind of forced to believe, and that can get kind of dangerous, because then you don't really have enough heroes to kind of, and there's so many different heroes and villains out there that kids attach to, depending on their personality or whatever. For me, it was Luke, Anakin, Vegeta, all for different various reasons, depending on my mood or what I was going through. And I feel like if we get rid of that, Batman, if we get rid of that, we're just going to have a bunch of weak kids that don't grow up with any sort of backbone whatsoever, or kind of like a standard to look up to and be like, hey, like, I think this is, a character I really like, and I would love to kind of emulate how he deals with certain situations in life the same way. And that would make him strong. That would make him or her, whatever, grow up, I would think, with more structure. But if we get rid of that, that's dangerous, I think.
I think you also start creating a lot of narcissists, to be honest, because I think one of the reasons why we don't idolize ourselves or put ourselves on a pedestal is because we have these examples of heroes that we really like. And the more you take those away, the more we kind of have to look inward and start thinking, well, I'm the best example of whatever there is. And it's amazing how these sentiments have changed, because I was actually talking to somebody the other day. As embarrassing as this is, when I was 4 years old, Buzz Lightyear was the love of my life. I had such a crush on him, but I was 4. And I explained this to somebody the other day as a joke, and they were like, well, that's gross. And I was like, why? I was 4 years old. They're like, yeah, well, he's a fucking space cop, ACAB. And I'm like, are you seriously doing this about Buzz Lightyear?
What?
Because he was a space cop. I'm now a dirty capitalist pig because I liked him when I was 4 years old. That's where we're at. That is where we're at. There are no more heroes. Batman is a dirty rich man beating up poor people for fun. Like,
He's a womanizer.
You cannot like anybody. It's ridiculous.
King destroyed him in the comics, made him give away his money. He still didn't stop crime.
He lost Catwoman too. It's ridiculous.
I stopped at that point when you got cut.
To those people, I just say fuck off. That's it's as simple as that.
That's perfect. That is the perfect response.
Yeah,
just
and it's on purpose.
Off. Fuck you, and your like moral relativism bullshit.
Yeah,
we need actual heroes that people can look up to, and it's not a fucking crime to be a heroic character.
I think a lot of people might jump to the gun and be like, they're just fucking media characters. Like, there's a lot of people out there who don't have certain aspects of their life that are able to inspire them as much as one cartoon in the right place, one TV show, one movie in the right place. We all have our favorites, the ones we draw the most inspiration from. And I think like it is a super important part of culture, along with education, obviously good parenting, families and stuff. Like, I understand all that. I'm just thinking about how, like, not seeing characters make selfless decisions, deal with accountability, doing all kinds of sacrifices, and then you see it happen on the screen. You're like, I like that character. I kind of want to. I feel like I'm going to do that if it ever comes up for me, and I'll think about them, and then it'll be subconscious, right? It'll have been built in, and you have to actually do a lot of sort of introspection to figure out why you even became the person you are. And if we lose all of them, which we have lost a fucking lot of them, At
Yeah.
least in their modern iterations, right? Part of the job we try to encourage here on these shows is to make sure with future generations to be like, hey, by the way, this isn't that. This isn't Star Wars. This isn't Indiana Jones. This isn't this. Is like this all this other stuff that I have the 4Ks of in my big TV. We can watch it all tonight. Like we're gonna watch all the best shit ever. You know, try and keep them alive that way. But at the same time, like that's why the criticism needs to be maintained, because one day, if we ever have a chance of getting back on track, it will be because we're calling it out, not because we stop talking about it altogether and just wait. That'll never be the solution.
Nope.
No.
And if I can add to that, I kind of feel like, you know, how in the old days, they look to gods like, you know, Odin, Zeus, whatever, Thor. Today, what's the difference? We got Superman.
Yeah.
You know,
they
these
were
are
the
our,
same.
Yeah,
our
it's
kind of gods.
The
that we look
modern
up to.
American mythology.
Yeah.
It's Age of Heroes,
Every
Force turning.
like
comic
it's,
books,
it's
it's-
always
it's-
going to
yeah.
be it's a intrinsic part, I guess, of being human. Like we always create these idealized versions of ourselves that we want to look up to inspire people. And whether it's going to be, like you say, like the mythological gods, like you know, Odin or whatever other religion you want to come up with, or in the modern context, pop culture icons like Luke Skywalker or Indiana Jones or anyone else, it's always the same fundamental need. We want people that embody the traits that we look up to, that inspire us to try and do a little bit better in our own lives. We're not going to be Steve Rogers. We're not going to be like Captain America or anything, but we can embody some of the aspects of his personality, like not giving up, not being constrained by
Yeah.
like the limitations of, you know, being a little bit weedy or whatever. It comes down to more than that in life. Those are great things to teach people. Like, how many people were inspired to become engineers because of Scotty from Star Trek, or was
Surprising a
inspired
lot,
to
apparently.
yeah, we're inspired to get into better shape because of Rocky Balboa. Like you could go on and on and on.
Dude.
Like all of these things help people in some way
Yeah.
because they're given positive role models to look up to. And Mueller was
Foundation.
exactly right. Not
Dude,
everyone,
it-
not every
life-
kid has
life-changing.
that in their life.
Yeah, so they say literally save lives. It's so important.
What
The
they thought the
foundation-
Eternals did.
The foundation of Peter Parker's Spider-Man that I grew up with was it taught me and through comics that life is incredibly unfair. He couldn't
Yeah.
pay his rent. He always had to take care of his aunt. He couldn't tell anybody who he was. He was always, he's got J. Jonah Jameson on his ass all the time. He's got the cops on his ass all the time, and he still does the right thing. That's what was different about him. That's why
Yeah.
I liked him.
Great way of
and
putting it, Gary.
Yeah, he was a great role model.
I mean, societally, there's just a really weird shift. Like, I always think about when Peter Cullen's been interviewed about Optimus Prime, he always has that line, and I get Transformers is ridiculous. It's a truck robot guy, but it means a lot to a lot of people,
No, it's
myself
not
included.
ridiculous.
And they have that line, be strong enough to be gentle. And I think these days, the be strong enough to be gentle has been completely thrown away for being loud enough to get what you want. These days there is no strength. It's just arguing for what you think is correct. There is never any space for any introspection because you don't have to look inward. Whatever you think is exactly what should be. There is nobody else who could provide a good example for you because whatever you think is definitely correct. It's genuinely like narcissistic and weird. I mean, I don't want to be like, we live in a society, but we live in a society.
Well,
Like,
the gist of so many stories used to be the hero of the story would start in a place way down here, like weak, maybe a little bit overconfident in themselves. They start to like climb up a little bit. They hit some setback, like they match themselves up against someone who's way stronger than them, and they hit adversity and they fall down. They have to find some kind of strength within themselves. They have to learn some kind of lesson, and that's when they rise up and eventually overcome their adversity. And that's a simple formula, but it works so well. This idea that you are not necessarily born prepared to take on all the challenges that life is going to throw at you, but you are going to have to learn to become a stronger person as a result of
Yeah.
that. and eventually you will, and you'll overcome, and you will then reach a better place as a person. That's what life is. It's about growing, adapting, becoming a stronger, better, more capable person. Those are good lessons to teach people. They work well. That's going to equip you to deal better with life. Now, I think, like you said, the message is more, you're already awesome. You know everything you need to know already, and it's the rest of the world who just has to adapt to you and
You
deal
are
with
enough.
you. Yeah.
No.
And that is a horrible lesson to teach people, because that is not going to equip them to deal with life.
It's bullshit. It tells people that they can be complacent the way they are. They don't gotta get healthy.
Yeah.
They don't gotta work harder. They don't gotta nothing. It's just
No, we've had a shocking amount of stories in the recent years that have been, you were right all along. Like for the protagonist, it's insane. Not just obviously mentally, but physically too. Like you don't need to do any kind of training. You've got the strength. You had it all along. You just needed to believe it yourself. It's like there's an aspect, right, a truth and believe in yourself that can take you to a particular place you need to go. But fucking hell, like watching every character in the MCU that's been newly introduced just be told in the third act, by the way, you got it all. And they're like, I do. You're like, yep, go.
Did you notice like a certain like demographic that ties together all of those characters that are perfect right off the bat?
Yes. The hero's
I
journey.
think we did.
I'm not a biologist.
They're not straight white men. I'll put it that way. Fucking hell.
no. There's none of
The
that.
one thing from that Star Wars funeral yesterday that everyone said, it was just that Star Wars had always been there. It's like, for the most part, some of the older ones, it's like, oh, I saw it when I was younger. But for the most part, everyone Star Wars was just an ever-present thing. And that's why it's such a, like, a constant thing of, like, heroes that's just sort of, boop. And, yeah, not alone in that there's some of these heroes, they've just always been there for us. And that's why we take not kindly when we see them depicted in the way they've been depicted.
Yeah.
Are we entering into a post-hero world?
So I think that's where we're
like,
at.
will it get to the point like
Yeah.
all this stuff is so far in the past that like the current generation just won't even look it up?
But
They won't
the
remember.
need,
No, they
the need
won't.
for heroes is like
won't.
fundamental, I think, and they'll find their way back.
The
Well,
need
I
for
know, and like
aggression
I want to believe
in
that,
men.
but then the need might be there, but then the ability to articulate that need and then translate that into action to produce movies or media or whatever that supplies it.
It'll happen on its own, right? It's that good times meme, good times make strong.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know, we're right in
Yeah.
the bad times, about to make some real strong people that will hopefully then write some really good heroes as examples for the next generation.
Cool. Well, I can't wait for the coming apocalypse that could bring about better storytelling in media. You know?
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
That's what
Cross
it
our
takes.
fingers.